Lucretius, Thomas Creech's English translation. This is the first translation into vernacular of Lucretius, 1682, and this translation had a massive impact on the history of science and the wider dissemination of ancient scientific ideas across and through England. Notice that English pronunciation has changed somewhat since this was written, just like when we read Shakespeare and we see that prove and louvre and lie endings as well. Every now and then I will attempt to change my pronunciation so that we keep the rhyme scheme. Kind Venus, glory of the blessed abodes, parent of Rome, and joy of men and gods, delight of all, comfort of sea and earth, to whose kind powers all creatures owe their birth. At thy approach, great goddess, straight remove whate'er are rough and enemies to loove. The clouds disperse, the winds do swiftly waste, and reverently in murmurs breathe their last. The earth with various art for thy warm powers that dull mass fields puts forth her gaudy flowers. For thee doth subtle luxury prepare the choicest stores of earth, of sea and air. To welcome thee she comes profusely dressed with all the spices of the wanton East. To pleasure thee in lazy luxury toils, the roughest sea puts on smooth looks and smiles. The well-pleased heaven assumes a brighter ray at thy approach, and makes a double day. When first the gentle spring begins t'inspire melting thoughts, soft wishes, gay desire, and warm Favonius fans the amorous fire. First, through the birds the active flame doth move, who with their mates sit down and sing and love. They gratefully their tuneful voice employ at thy approach, the author of their joy. Each beast forgets his rage, and entertains a softer fury. Through the flowery plains, through rapid streams, through woods and silent groves, with wanton play they run to meet their loaves. Whole nature yields unto your charms. The ways you lead she follows, and eagerly obeys, acted by those kind principles you infuse. Each bird and beast endeavours to produce his kind, and the decaying world renews. Thee, nature's powerful ruler, without whom nothing that's lovely, nothing gay can come. From darksome chaos deep and ugly womb, thee now I sing of nature I must choose a patron to my verse. Be thou my muse, and make my lines, whilst I to Memmius write thy choice, thy most deserving favourite. Inspire my breast with an unusual flame, sprightly as his wit, immortal as his fame. Let war's tumultuous noise and labours cease. Let earth and sea enjoy a solid peace. Peace is thy gift alone, for furious Mars, the only governor and god of wars, tired with heat and toil, doth oft resort to taste the pleasures of the Paphian court. Where on thy bosom he supinely lies, and greedily drinks Louvre at both his eyes, to quite o'ercome he snatches an eager kiss, and hastily goes on to greater bliss. Then, midst his strict embraces, clasp thine arms about his neck, and call forth all thy charms, caress with all thy subtle arts, become a flatterer, and beg a peace for Rome. For midst rough wars, how can verse smoothly flow? Or midst such storms the learned laurel grow? How can my Memmius have time to read, who by his ancestors' famed glory lead to noble actions, must espouse the cause of his dear country's liberties and laws, and you, my Memmius, free from other cares, perceive right reason's voice with well-purged ears, lest what I write and send you for your good be scorned and damned before well understood. I treat of things abstruse, the deity, the vast and steady motions of the sky, the rise of things, how curious nature joins the various seed, and in one mass combines. The jarring principles, what new supplies bring nourishment and strength, how she unties the Gordian knot, and the poor compound dies. Of what she makes, to what she breaks the frame, called seeds or principles, though either name we use promiscuously, the thing's the same. For whatsoe'er's divine must live in peace, in undisturbed and everlasting ease, not care for us, from fears and dangers free, sufficient to its own felicity. Naught here below, naught in our power it needs, near smiles at good, near frowns at wicked deeds. Long time men lay oppressed with slavish fear, religion's tyranny did domineer, which, being placed in heaven, looked proudly down, and frighted abject spirits with her frown. At length a mighty one of Greece began to assert the natural liberty of man, by senseless terrors and vain fancy led to slavery. Straight the conquered phantoms fled. Not the famed stories of a deity, not all the thunder of the threatening sky could stop his rising soul. Through all he passed the strongest bounds that powerful nature cast. His vigorous and active mind was hurled beyond the flaming limits of this world into the mighty space, and there did see how things begin, what can, what cannot be, how all must die or yield to fatal force, what steady limits bound their natural course. He saw all this, and brought it back to us. Wherefore by his success our right we gain. Religion is our subject, and we reign. If you shall start at these bold truths, and fly these lines as maxims of impiety, consider that religion did and will contrive, promote, and act the greatest ill, by that Diana's cruel altar flowed with innocent and royal virgin's blood, unhappy maid, with sacred ribbons bound, religion's pride, and holy garlands crowned, to meet an undeserved, untimely fate. Led by the Grecian chiefs in pomp and state, she saw her father by, whose tears did flow in streams. The only pity he could show, she saw the crafty priest conceal the knife from him, blessed and prepared against her life. She saw her citizens with weeping eyes unwillingly attend the sacrifice. Then, dumb with grief, her tears did pity crave, but 'twas beyond her father's power to save. In vain did innocence, youth, and beauty plead. In vain the first pledge of his nuptial bed. She fell, e'en now grown ripe for nuptial joy, to bribe the gods and buy a wind for Troy. So died the innocent, the harmless maid. Such devilish acts religion could persuade. But still some frightful tales, some furious threats by poets formed, those grave and holy cheats may bias thee. E'en I could easily find 1,000 stories to distract thy mind, invent new fears, whose horrid looks should fright and damp thy thoughts when eager on delight, and reason good. But if it once appear that after death there's neither hope nor fear, then men might freely triumph, then disdain the poet's tales and scorn their fancied pain. But now we must submit, since pains we fear. Eternal after death, we know not where. We know not yet how our soul is produced, whether with body born, or else infused, whether in death, breathed out into the air, she doth confusedly mix and perish there, or through vast shades and horrid silence go to visit brimstone caves and pools below, or into beasts retires. As our famed Ennius sings, upon whose brow the first and freshest crowns of laurel grow, that ever learned Italy could show, though he in lasting numbers doth express the stately Acorician palaces, which neither soul nor body e'er invades, but certain pale and melancholy shades, from whence he saw old Homer's ghost arise, an august shade, down from whose reverent eyes, whilst his learned tongue nature's great secrets told, whole streams of tears in mighty numbers rolled. Therefore I'll sing, to cure these wanton fears, why sun and moon mete out the circling years, how bodies first begin, but chiefly this, whence comes the soul and what her nature is, what frights her waking thoughts, what cheats her eyes. When sleeping or diseased, she thinks she spies thin ghosts in various shapes about her bed, and seems to hear the voices of the dead. I'm sensible the Latin is too poor to equal the vast rich Grecian store. New matter various nature still affords, and new conceptions do require new words. Yet, for respect of you, with great delight I meet these dangers, and I wake all night, labouring fit numbers and fit words to find, to make things plain, and to instruct your mind, and teach her to direct her curious eye into coy nature's greatest privacy. These fears, that darkness that o'erspreads our souls, they can't disperse, but those eternal rules, which from firm premises true reason draws, and a deep insight into nature's laws. Well then, let this as the first rule be laid: nothing was by the gods of nothing made. For hence proceeds all our distrust and fear. For hence proceeds all our distrust and fear, that many things in earth and heaven appear, whose causes far remote and hidden lie, beyond the ken of vulgar reason's eye, therefore ascribed unto the deity. But this once proved, it gives an open way to nature's secrets, and we walk in day how things are made, and how preserved we'll prove, without the trouble of the powers above. If nothing can be fertile, what law binds all beings still to generate their own kinds? Why do not all things variously proceed from everything? What use of similar seed? Why do not birds and fishes rise from earth, and men and trees from water take their birth? Why do not herds and flocks drop down from air? Wild creatures and untamed spring everywhere. The same tree would not rise from the same root, the cherry would not blush in the same fruit. Naught fixed and constant be, but every year whole nature change, and all things bear. For did not proper seeds on all things wait? How then could this thing still arise from that? But now, since constant nature all things breeds from matter fitly joined with proper seeds, their various shapes, their different properties, is the plain cause why all from all can't rise. Besides, why is ripe corn in summer found? Why not bold winter with fresh roses crowned? Why not his cups o'erflow with new pressed wine, but sweaty autumn only treads the vine? But because seeds to vital union cast, spring and appear but whilst the seasons last, whilst Mother Earth hath warmth and strength to bear, and can safely trust her infant fruits to the mild air, things made of nothing would at once appear at any time and quarter of the year. Since there's no seed whose nature might remit and check their growth until the seasons fit, beside, no need of time for things to grow, for that would be a measure e'en too slow. but in one instant, if from naught began, a shrub might be a tree, a boy, a man. But this is false. Each mean observer sees things grow from certain seeds by just degrees, and growing keep their kind, and hence we know that things from proper matter rise and grow, by proper matter fed and nourished too. Again, the earth puts forth no gaudy flowers unless impregnated with timely showers, and living creatures too, that scarce receive supplies of food, nor can beget, nor live. Wherefore 'tis better to conclude there are many first common bodies everywhere, which joined, as letters, words, do things compose, than that from nothing anything arose. Besides, why doth weak nature make such small, such puny things for men? Why not so tall, that whilst they wade through seas and swelling tides, the aspiring waves should hardly reach their sides? Why not so strong that they with ease might tear the hardest rocks and throw them through the air? Why cannot she preserve them in their prime, above the power of devouring time? Why wanton childhood ends in youthful rage, and youth falls swiftly into doting age? But because things on certain seeds depend for their beginning, continuance, and end, therefore unfruitful nothing breeds, since all things owe their life to proper seeds. Besides, experience tells us that wild roots, bettered by art and soil, bear noble fruits. Whence we conclude that seeds of bodies lie in earth's cold womb, which set at liberty by breaking of the clods in which they lurk, spring briskly up and do their proper work. For were there none, though we no help afford, things would be bettered of their own accord. Besides, as nothing nature's power creates, so death dissolves, but not annihilates. For could these substances of bodies die, they presently would vanish from our eye, and without force dissolving perish all, and silently into their nothing fall. But now, since things from seeds eternal rise, their parts well joined and fitted, nothing dies, unless some force break off the natural ties. Besides, if, or whatever years prevail, should wholly perish, and its matter fail, how could the powers of all kind Venus breed a constant race of animals to succeed? Or how the earth eternally supply with proper food each their necessity? How could the springs and rivers run so far and fill a sea? How the air feed each star? For what for e'er could into nothing waste, that infinite space of time already past had quite consumed. But if those bodies which compose this all could for so many ages past endure, they are immortal, and from death secure, and therefore cannot into nothing fall. Again, the same force everything would break, were not the union made more strong or weak. by the immortal seeds. Nay, more than that, one single touch would be the stroke of fate for things where no eternal seeds are found, would straight dissolve and die with any wound. But since the seed's eternal, and the frame of bodies and their union not the same, things may secure and free from danger stand, until some force, driven by an envious hand, proportioned to the texture, breaks the band. Thus death dissolves alone, she breaks the chain and scatters things to their first seeds again. Lastly, when Father Aether kindly pours on fertile Mother Earth his seminal showers, they seem to perish there, but straight new juice ferment, and various herbs and trees produce, whose trunks grow strong, and spreading branches shoot, look fresh and green, and bend beneath their fruit. These nourishment to man and beast do prove. Hence our towns fill with youth, with birds, each groove, who sit and sing, and in a numerous throng with new-fledged wings clap and applaud their song. These fat are cattle, which distended lie on fertile banks, their spriteful young ones by revelling on milk, which their swollen udders yield, grow gay and brisk and wanton o'er the field, and therefore bodies cannot fall to naught, since one thing still is from another brought by provident nature, who lets nothing rise and be, unless from something else that dies. Now, since we have by various reasons taught that nothing rises from or falls to naught, lest you dissent, because these seeds must lie beyond the ken e'en of the sharpest eye. No, there are bodies which no eye can see, but yet from their effects must grant to be. For first, the winds disturb the seas, and tear the stoutest ships, and chase clouds through the air. Sometimes through humble plains their violent course they take, and bear down trees with mighty force. Sometimes they rise so high, their strength so great, with furious storms they lofty mountains bait, and tear their woods. These must be bodies, though unseen they be, which thus disturb heaven, earth, air, and sea, which hardest oaks and rocks and all things tear, and snatch them up, whirling through the air. They all rush on, as headlong rivers flow, swollen big with falling showers or melting snow. Those rocks and trees o'er return, and mighty beams, and well their conquered prey in rapid streams. No bridge can check, no force the stream control. It grows more wild and fierce, and beats the mole. Ruin and noise attend where'er it flows. It rolls great stones, and breaks what dare oppose. So rush the blasts of wind, which like a flood, which where for air they tend, drive rocks and wood, and all before them, sometimes upwards bear in rapid turns, and whirl them in the air. 'Tis certain then, these winds that rudely fight are bodies, though too subtle for our sight. since they do work as strong, as furious grow as violent streams, which all grant bodies do. Those numerous odours too, whose smells delight and please the nose, are all too thin for sight. We view not heat, nor sharpest colds, which wound the tender nerves, nor can we see a sound. Yet these are bodies, for they move the sense, and straight brisk pleasures, or quick pains commence. They shake the nerves. Now, what for e'er doth touch, or can be touched, that must be granted such. Besides, fresh clothes, expanded near the main, grow wet. The same by the sun are dried again. Yet, what I saw, when first the moisture sate, or when it rose and fled before the hate, therefore we must conclude the drops have been dissolved to parts too subtle to be seen. Besides, 'tis certain every circling year the rings which grace the hands diminish there. Drops hollow stones, and whilst we plough, the share grows less. The streets, by often treading, wear. The brazen statues that our gates adorn show their right hands diminished and worn by the touch of those that visit or pass by. 'Tis certain, from all these some parts must fly, but when those bodies part, or what they be, envious nature denies the power to see. Lastly, none, not the sharpest eye, ear sees what parts to make things grow by just degrees nature doth add, nor what she takes away when age steals softly on and things decay, nor what the salt to set the waters free frets from the rocks and beats into the sea. 'Tis certain then that much which nature does she works by bodies undiscerned by us. Yet bodies do not fill up every space, every place, for besides those there is an empty space, a void. This notion framed aright will bring to my discourse new strength and light, and teach you plainest methods to descry the greatest secrets of philosophy. A void is space intangible, thus proved, for there were none, no body could be moved, because where'er the brisker motion goes, it still must meet with stops, still meet with foes. 'Tis natural to bodies to oppose, so that to move would be in vain to try. But all would fixed, stubborn, and moveless lie, because no yielding body could be found, which first should move and give the other ground. But every one now sees that things do move, with various turns in earth and heaven above, which were no void, not only we'd not seen, but the bodies to themselves had never been near generated. For matter, all sides pressed with other matter, would forever rest. Though free from pores and solid things appear, yet many reasons prove them to be rare. For drops distill, and subtle moisture creeps through hardest rocks, and every marble weeps. Juice, drawn from food, unto the head doth climb, then falls to the feet, and visits every limb. Trees grow, and at due seasons yield their fruit, because the juice drawn by the labouring root doth rise i'th trunk, and through the branches shoot. Sounds pass through well-closed rooms and hardest stones, and vigorous winter's frosts affect our bones. This could not be, were there no empty space through which these movables might freely pass. Besides, why have not bodies equal weight with those whose figure is but just as great? For did as many equal bodies frame both wool and lead, their weight would be the same. For every part of matter downward tends, by nature heavy, but no void descends. Wherefore, those lighter things of equal size do less of matter, more of void comprise, but by their heavier more of seeds enjoyed, and these convincing reasons prove a void. But some object the floods give fishes way, who cut their passage through the yielding sea. Because they leave a sparse where'er they go, to which the yielding waters circling flow, and hence by an analogy they prove that though the world was full, yet things may move, but this is weak. For how could fishes ply their natural oars, how cut the sea and visit distant shores, unless the waves gave way? How those divide, except the fish first part the yielding tide? Well then, fight sense, deny what that will prove, discard all motion and the power to shove, or grant a void, whence things begin to move. Let two broad bodies meet and part again. The air must fill the space that's left between. Yet though supposed it flies as swift as thought, e'en common sense denies it can be brought, or all at once the nearest first possessed, and thence 'tis hurried on and fills the rest. But now, should some suppose these marbles part, made firm by nature and polite by art, because the air is condensed, they err. 'Tis plain that a wide void is made and filled again, nor can the air condensed be thus employed, or if it could, yet not without a void. Could all the parts contract to shorter space, and be combined with a more close embrace. Thus, though you cavil, yet at last o'ercome, you must ignobly grant a vacuum. Nor are these all 10,000 reasons more clear, firm, convincing, yet ne'er heard before, might be produced. But these, my curious youth, will guide thy searching mind to farther truth. For as hounds once in trace do beat about, pursue the scent, and find the coverts out, so you, my Memmius, may from one thing known to hidden truths successfully go on. Pursue coy truth with an unerring sense into her close recess, and force her thence. Go briskly on, and in such things as these, near doubt, I'll promise thee deserved success, and my full soul is eager to declare so many secrets, that I justly fear here I shall prove but one particular. The reasons flow in such a numerous throng, that age or hasty death will break the song. But to go on, this all consists of body and of space. This moves, and that affords the motion place. That bodies are, we all from sense receive, whose notice, if in this we disbelieve, on what can reason fix, on what rely, what rule the truth of her deductions try, in greater secrets of philosophy? Suppose no void, as former reasons prove, no body could enjoy a place or move. Besides these two, there is no third degree distinct from both, naught that hath power to be. For if 'tis tangible, and hath a place, 'tis body; if intangible, 'tis space. Besides, whatever is, a power must own, or fit to act, or to be acted on, or be a place in which such things are done. Now bodies only suffer and act, and place is the peculiar gift of empty space. Well then, a different third in vain is sought, and not to be discovered by sense or thought. For what for ear may seem of more degrees are the events or properties of these, which to explain we call those properties which never part except the subject dies. So weight to stones, so moisture to the sea, so touch to body is, and to be free from touching is the void. But peace and wealth, war, concord, slavery, liberty, and health, whose presence or whose absence nor prevents nor brings the subject ruin, are events. Time of itself is nothing, but from thought receives its rise, by labouring fancy wrought from things considered, whilst we think on some as present, some as past or yet to come. No thought can think on time that's still confessed, but thinks on things in motion or at rest. Yet, whilst the sons of fame their songs employ on Helen's rape, or mourn the fall of Troy, take heed, nor fancy from such tales as these that actions are, that they subsist, confess, since all those whose events they were, war's rage long since destroyed, or more devouring age, for action, or whate'er from action springs, is called the event of countries or of things. Lastly, suppose no frame, no seeds had been to act these things, nor space to act them in. No gentle fire had warmed kind Paris' breast. No flames from beauteous Helen's eyes increased, and kindled dreadful war. No teeming horse brought forth in one short night so great a force as ruined stately Troy, which plainly show that actions not subsist as bodies do, neither as void, but as events alone, of places where, and things by which they're done. But farther, bodies are of a different kind, or principles, or made of those combined. The principles of things no force can break. They are too solid, and all strokes too weak. Though such can hardly be believed, for voice or thunder's sound, or every louder noise breaks through our walls, which yet remain entire, so iron glows, and rocks dissolve in fire. Brisk flames divide the stubborn gold and brass, and to a liquid substance break the mass. Through silver, heat and cold, and each disdains and scorns a prison, though in precious chains this sense perceives. For hold a silver cup, and pour some water gently in at top. The imprisoned heat or cold straight breaks their bands, grow fierce, fly through, and warm or chill the hands. These instances are strong. These seem to explain that beings in their vast extent contain no perfect solids, creatures of the brain. But yet attend my muse. She briefly sings, because right reason and the frame of things such seeds require. Attend, she sweetly shows and proves that things from perfect solids rose. Two sorts of beings reasons I descried, and proved before their difference vastly wide, body and void, which never could agree in any one essential property. For matter, as for body, as 'tis matter, is from place distinct, and void from body, as 'tis space. Both these distinct subsist, and thus 'tis proved that seeds are solid and from space removed. But farther on, since things of seed composed hold void, that thing by which that void's enclosed is perfect solid, for what else employed can hold a space, or what contain a void? Now what can sense, what searching reason find? To hold this void, but solid seeds combined. This solid matter must forever last, eternally endure, while compounds waste. So grant no void, no spaces unpossessed, then all would solid be, and all at rest. And grant no solids which fill up that place they do possess, all would be empty space. Well then, seeds mixed with void compose the whole. Not all is empty space, not all, is full, and solid seeds exist which fill their place and make a difference between full and space. These, as I proved before, no active flame, no subtle cold can pierce and break their frame. Though every compound yields, no powerful blow, no subtle wedge divide or break in two, for nothing can be struck, no part destroyed by powerful blows or cleft without a void. And those that hold most void, when strokes do press, or subtle wedges enter, yield with ease. Now, if these seeds are solid, they must endure eternally from force, from stroke secure. Besides, were seeds not eternal, all then would rise from naught, and all return to naught. Nothing would be both womb and urn. But since my former reasons clearly taught that nothing rises from or sinks to naught, those various things eternal seeds compose, and death again dissolves them into those. And thence new things were framed, new creatures rose. Then seeds are solid, else how could they last? How things repair so many ages past? When nature things divides, did she go on dividing still, and never would have done? The seeds had been so small, so much refined, that nothing could have grown mature, no mass combined. For things are easier far dissolved than joined, than nature, which through all those ages past hath broke those seeds, and still goes on to waste, could scarce contrive, though numerous years remain, to fit, unite, and join them close again. But now 'tis plain, by strictest reason tried, that nature doth not infinitely divide, since things are made, and certain years endure, in which they spring, grow, and become mature. But more, those seeds are hard through all their frame. A compound may be soft as water, flame, whate'er it is, or whencesoe'er it springs, because we grant a void commixed with things. But were they soft, no reason could be shown how hardened iron's framed, or harder stone, for nature then would want fit seeds to work upon. Then solid seeds exist, whose numerous throng, closely combined, makes compounds, firm and strong. But more, since things have time for life and growth, prefixed, and certain terms are set for both, since bounds are set o'er which they cannot go, and laws speak what they can and cannot do, nor things are changed. For all the kinds that fly are clothed with plumes of the same curious dye. The matter must be firm, the seeds must be unchangeable, from alteration free. For grant the seeds may change, we could not know what things would be produced, or when, or how great their power would rise, how far extend, how long they'd live, or when their actions end. Nor should we find the same delights pursued, nor parents' natures in their young renewed. Besides, those parts of things that utmost lie are something, though too subtle for the eye, and these are leasts. They never break the chain, and by themselves subsist, nor ever can. For they are parts, whose both extremes the same, and such like, placed in order body's frame. Since these subsist not in a separate state, their union must be strong, too firm for fate. And stroke and wedge may try their strength in vain, no force can loose the tie or break the chain. Then seeds are simple solids, their parts combined by strongest bands, but not of others joined. These nature keeps entire. These seeds supply for future things, repairing those that die. Besides, suppose no least, then seeds refined, too small for sense, nay, scarce perceived by mind, would still be full, still numerous parts contain, no end, no bound, but infinite the train, and thus the greatest and the smallest frame would both be equal, and their bounds the same. For though they all be infinite, each single grain and smallest seeds as numerous parts contain, but that's absurd by reason's laws confessed, and therefore nature must admit a lest, not framed of others, which no parts can show. And that is solid and eternal too. Beside, did nature not resolve to lest, her power quite spent, her words long since had ceased, her force all gone, no beings raised anew, nor things repaired, for no composure's shew. What seeds must have? Those catholic qualities, nature's great instruments, weight, motion, size. Lastly, grant nature infinitely divides and never ceases. You must grant besides that still some seeds exist which never broke, remain secure, free from the power of stroke. But 'tis absurd frail seeds should bear the rage of strokes unhurt, nor yield to powerful age. Those grossly err, who teach all rise from fire, as Heraclitus, whom vain Greeks admire for dark expression. But the sober few, who seek for and delight in what is true, scorn and contemn, for only fools regard what seems obscure and intricate and hard. Take that for truth. Whole phrases smooth appear, and dancing periods charm the wanton ear. For how could bodies of so different frame, so various, rise from pure and real flame? Nor can you clear the doubt by fond pretence that fire is made more rare or else more dense. This changes not the fire, 'tis still the same, if dense a strong, if rare a weaker flame. Yet this is all that can be said. Who can believe that nature's various pride can spring from flame condensed or rarefied? 'Tis true. Did these admit an empty space, then flame made rare might fill a larger place, or dense combine with a more strict embrace. But since they think that hard and void oppose, fearing the difficult, the right they lose, nor yet perceive that banished void alone, all bodies would be dense and all be one, from which no seeds could fly, no parts retire, as smoke and heat and vigorous light from fire. This proves a void commixed. But if by any means, however strange, the flame could perish and its parts could change, if this could once be done, then all its heat and its whole nature would be naught, and its whole nature would to naught retreat. And therefore bodies would from nothing rise. For what is changed from what it was, that dies. But after change, some seeds must still remain, lest all should sink to naught and thence return again. Now, since our former reasons clearly show some seeds, and those of constant nature too, whose presence, absence, or whose different range of order makes the things themselves to change, we certainly conclude they are not flame, for then 'twould naught import what newly came. What changed its order, or what did retire, since all would be of the same nature, fire. But this is my opinion. Some seeds exist, from whose sight, figure, size, concussion, order, motion, flames arise. And when the order's changed, the parts of fire their nature lose, and silently expire. The disunited bodies fly from thence, not flame, nor any object of the sense. But now to think, as Heraclitus tells, that all that is fire, and nothing else, 'tis fond, and certainty of sense o'erthrows, from which alone that flame exists he knows. In this he credit gives, but fears to ford the like in things as plain, and that's absurd. For what can judge, and what our search secure, like sense, truth's great criterion? What so sure? Besides, why should we rather all disclaim, reject all else, and fancy only flame, than fire deny, and all things else receive, both which 'tis equal madness to believe? Well then, all those that teach things took their birth from simple fire, or water, air, or earth, lie under palpable mistakes. And those that teach from doubled elements they rose, as air and fire, as earth and water joined, or all four, earth, air, water, fire combined, thus sung Empedocles in fruitful Sicily, whose crooked sides the Ionian washes with impetuous tides, and a small Firth from Italy divides. Here Scylla raves, and fierce Charybdis roars, beating with boisterous waves the trembling shores. Here pressed Encleadus with mighty loads, vomits revenge in flames against the gods. Through Aetna's jaws he impudently threats, and thundering heaven with equal thunder beats. This isle, though with such wondrous sights as these, doth call forth travellers, and the curious please, is rich with men and fruit, hath rarely shown a thing more glorious than this single one. His verse, composed of nature's works, declare his wit was strong, and his invention rare, his judgment deep and sound, whence some began, and justly too, to think him more than man. Yet he, with all the meaner others named, though for some rare inventions justly famed, which they have left as oracles more sure than from the tripod spoke, and less obscure than those the ancients from the Pythia heard, if principles of things have greatly erred, that things may briskly move, be soft or rare, without a void, as water, flame, or air, they all affirm that nature never rests in breaking bodies, and admits no leasts. When yet we see that part that topmost lies, is the least that is presented to our eyes, from whence that what's a least we may conclude which utmost is too little to be viewed. Besides, their seeds are soft which can be born and die, then all would rise and all return to naught, and nothing would be both womb and urn. Beside, since they are contraries, and at jars amongst themselves engaged in civil wars, they perish when they meet, or scattered waste, as wind and showers crossed by an adverse blast. Lastly, if from 4 elements all things rose, and all again by death dissolved to those, what reason we should rather fondly deem those principles of things than things of them? For they alternately are changed, and show each other's figure and their nature too. But if you think that earth is joined with fire, with water, air, their nature still entire, nothing could first be made, or made increased, nor tree, nor man, nor tender fruit, nor beast. For each component in the various mass would keep its nature, and be what it was, and we should view confusedly joined and fixed thin air with earth, and fire with water mixed. But principles of things must be unknown, of nature undiscerned, lest any one, rising above the other, should appear, and show that things not truly compounds are. Beside, they all these 4 from heaven derive, and first, that flame is turned to air, believe, thence water, and thence earth, and so retire from earth to water, and thence to air and fire. Their change near ceaseth, but about they're driven, from heaven to earth, from earth again to heaven. But seeds can never change their natural state, they must endure, freed from the power of fate, lest all should sink to naught, and thence arise. For what is changed from what it was, that dies. Now, since these 4 can die, since these can fail, of other seeds, o'er which no strokes prevail, they must be framed, lest all should rise, and all return to naught, and nothing be both womb and urn. Then rather grant seeds such, that did they frame a single body, as for instance, flame. Yet take away or add some new to those, their sight or motion changed, would air compose, and so of other things. But you'll object and say, 'tis manifest, from earth rise trees, are nourished and increased, and if the seasons prove not kind and good, moisture and soaking showers corrupt the wood. And did not Phoebus shed enlivening heat, no fruit or beasts could grow, look fair, and greet. And we, unless upheld by meats, should die, swallowed by treacherous mortality. Life, loosed from nerves and bones, long since had fled, and left the wasted carcass pale and dead. For we from certain things our strength receive, and other things from certain others leave. For various common principles are fixed in everything, and all confused and mixed, and therefore nature knows no general good, but different things must have their different food. And thus it matters to the grand design how, or with what, the various seeds combine, what sight and what position they maintain, what motion give and what receive again. For the same seeds compose both earth and seas, the sun and moon, both animals and trees, but their contexture or their motion disagrees. So in my verse are letters common found to many words, unlike in sense and sound. Such great variety bare change affords of order, if few elements of words. Now, since things' seeds are more, from those may rise more different shapes and more varieties. Now let's examine with a curious eye Anaxagoras and his philosophy. By copious Greece, termed homeomai, for which our Latin language, poor in words, not one expressive single voice affords. Yet by an easy short periphrasis we plainly can discover what it is. For this it means that bones of minute bones, that flesh of flesh, and stones of little stones, that nerves take other little nerves for food, and blood is made of little drops of blood, that gold from parts of the same nature rose, that earths to earth, fire's fire, air's air compose, and so in all things else alike to those. But he admits no void, he grants no least, and therefore errs in that with all the rest. Besides, too weak, too feeble seeds he chose, if they are like the bodies they compose, and liable to death as well as those, for which of all these beings could endure the violent jaws of death, from death secure? Could fire, could air, could water, blood, or bone? Which of all these? In my opinion, none. Since all would be as liable to die, subject to powerful mortality, as those which force destroys before our eye. But former arguments have clearly taught that things nor perish to, nor rise from naught. Besides, since by our meat our bodies grow, are nourished and increased, we plainly know that that bones and blood and veins and nerves are made of parts dissimilar, in order laid. But if the meat in perfect form contains small parts of nerves, of blood, of bones and veins, then meat and drink would in themselves preserve dissimilar parts, as blood, bone, vein and nerve. Besides, if all those things that spring from earth before they rose, before they showed their birth, lay hid within, the clods must needs comprise as proper parts those various things that rise. Now change the subject. Keep the terms the same. In wood, if smoke lies hid, if sparks and flame, it must consist of parts of different frame. But there's a little shift, a slight excuse, which Anaxagoras his scholars use. Though such lie mixed in all, that part alone appears, that only to the sense is shown, which in the composition doth comprise the greatest part, and on the surface lies. But this is false. Or through the weighty mill, from broken corn would bloody drops distill, or some such parts as in our bodies grow, from herbs and flowers a milky juice would flow. In broken clods each searching eye might see some lurking scattered herb or leaf or tree, and in cleft wood and broken sticks admire smoke, ashes, flame, and little sparks of fire. But since on strictest search no parts appear, we must not fondly fancy they are there, that bodies are composed of such combined, but common seeds in various order joined. But you will answer thus: 'tis often known that stately trees, on lofty mountains grown, when beaten by a furious southern blast, grow warm and hot, and so take fire at last. All this we grant, yet there's no actual fire, but seeds of heat, which dashed together all this flame beget. For if the wood such actual flame was held, how could it for one moment be concealed? It straight would show its mighty force and burn, and shrubs and trees and all to ashes turn. And hence, as we discoursed before, we find it matters much with what first seeds are joined, or how, or what position they maintain, what motion give, and what receive again, and that the seeds remaining still the same, their order changed, of wood are turned to flame. Just as the letters little change affords, ignis and lignum, two quite different words. Besides, if you suppose no frame would spring, unless the principles were like the thing, the same in nature, seeds are lost. For then some seeds would laugh and weep, and laugh again, with violent grin distort their little face, and presently drop briny tears apace. Now what remains, observe, distinctly mark. I notice hard, 'tis intricate and dark, yet powerful hope of praise still spurs me on. I'm eager, and 'tis time that I were gone. I rising feel poetic heats, and now inspired trace o'er the muses' feats, untrodden yet. 'Tis sweet to visit first untouched and virgin streams, and quench my thirst. 'Tis sweet to crop fresh flowers, and get a crown for new and rare inventions of my own. So noble, great, and generous the design, that none of all the mighty tuneful 9 shall grace a head with laurels like to mine. For first I teach great things in lofty strains, and loose men from religion's grievous chains. Next, though my subject's dark, my verse is clear and sweet, with fancy flowing everywhere. And this designed, for as physicians use in giving children draughts of bitter juice, to make them take it, tinge the cup with sweet, to cheat the lip. This first the eager meet, and then drink on, and take the bitter draught, and so are harmlessly deceived, not caught. For by this cheat they get their health, their ease, their vigour, strength, and baffle the disease. So, since our methods of philosophy seem harsh to some, since most our maxims fly, I thought it was the fittest way to dress these rigid principles in pleasing verse, with fancy sweetening them to bribe thy mind. To read my books, and lead it on to find the nature of the world, the rise of things, and what vast profit too that knowledge brings. Now, since my former various reasons show that seeds are solid and eternal too, let's next inquire if infinite or no. Likewise, if void and space do somewhere end, or without bounds to immensity extend. The all is every way immensely wide, or else it would have bounds on every side. Now, what can be a bound but that which lies beyond the body, whose extreme it is? That naught's beyond the all, in common sense declares. Therefore the all must be immense. Thus stand on any quarter of the space, that's nothing, 'tis immense from every place, but grant it finite. Suppose a man on the extremest part, suppose him stand and strive to throw a dart. The dart would forward fly, or hindered stay. Choose what you will, the reason's good each way, and firm. For if some farther space admit, or some resistance stops its hasty flight, that's not the end. So place the utmost part, where'er you will, I'll follow with the dart, and by this single argument deface for still the void will give a further place. Those feigned extremes and bounds you fix to space, again, suppose the all had bounds, suppose an end, then bodies, which by nature must descend, and from eternity pursued the race, had long ere this time reached the lowest place, whence nothing could in decent order rise. There could not be a glittering sun or skies, for all the seeds must lie confusedly mixed in a vast chaos, immovable and fixed. But now the seeds still move, because the space is boundless and admits no lowest place, no end, which heavy seeds, by nature pressed, might seek below and settle there and rest. Now, all from parts of matter moved arise, which the vast mass eternally supplies. But lastly, things to things still bounds appear, so air to lofty hills, and hills to air. So earth the seas, and seas the earth control. But there is nothing that can bound the whole. Wherefore to such that did swift lightning fly through the vast space to all eternity, no utmost part, no end would e'er be found, so vastly wide it is and without bound. Again, nature's eternal laws provide that the vast all should be immensely wide, boundless and infinite, because they place body as bound to void, to body space, by mutual bounding making both immense. For did they not each other bound, but one were infinite, for instance, space alone, nor man, nor earth, nor heaven, nor could the sea, nor bodies of the gods one moment be, for seeds of things their union all destroyed, would fly dissolved and scattered through the void. Or rather, into things had scarce combined, because once parted they had never joined. For sure, unthinking seeds did ne'er dispose themselves by counsel, nor their order chose, nor any compacts made how each should move, but from eternal through the vacuum struve. Variously moved and turned until at last most sorts of motion and of union passed, by chance to that convenient order hurled, which frames the beings that compose the world. And these same seeds, now orderly maintained, in those convenient motions they have gained, is a sufficient cause why fertile earth, by sunbeams quickened, gives new fruits their birth. Why rivers still the greedy deep supply, why beasts increase, why sun and moon near die, which could not be, unless supplies still came from the vast mass, and propped the sinking frame. As beasts deprived of food, so things must die, as soon as matter fails of just supply. Nor can eternal strokes preserve the whole. Sometimes they may the hasty flight control of some small part, till others come and join, and taking hold, into one mass combine. But oftentimes they must rebound, and then the principles of things may break the chain, and get their former liberty again. Nay, that these strokes might be this lasting fight, the mass of matter must be infinite. 'Tis certain then that there must come supply from the vast mass, repairing things that die. But scorn their dreams, who fondly can believe and teach that all things to the middle strive, and by that natural pressure this whole frame might be maintained its order still the same, without external impulse high and low, would always be as firmly joined as now, and their own sight their different place possess, since all unto one common centre press. They farther teach that ponderous weights below unto their resting places upwards go, and as our shadows in smooth streams appear, so feet to feet some animals walk there, yet can no sooner fall into those skies that lie beneath than we to heaven can rise. When Phoebus climbs their east, the feeble light of stars peeps forth and beautifies our night. But this ridiculous dream, this fancy springs from dark ignorance ith principles of things. For since the void is infinite, the space immense, how can there be a middle place, or grant there were? Yet why not bodies end their tedious race, and stop as well in any other place as there? For every part of empty space, of midst or not, must equally allow to ponderous movements easy passage through. For there's no place to which by nature pressed seeds lose their force of weight and freely rest, nor empty space can prop the seeds, nor stay their motion. 'Tis its nature to give way, lest heaven dissolved, like swiftest flames should fly through the vast space, the fabric of the sky, confusedly falling, lower buildings meet, the faithless earth forsake our trembling feet, and all the things in heaven and earth destroyed confusedly scatter through the mighty void, and in one moment everything deface, but unseen atoms and vast empty space. For wherefore the fabric doth begin to fail, there greedy death will enter in, and through the ruinous breach the violent course of rapid matter rush with mighty force. Besides, they grant not all, but only those which heavy water and dull earth compose, strive to the centre, but that too retire, endeavouring from it as light air and fire, whence stars, those feeble ornaments of night, are nourished, and gay Phoebus' fiercer light, because the flame from which the midst retires, when got on high, combines its scattered fires. How beasts get grass, how leaves on branches bud, if earthy parts rose not and gave them food. In bodies then there lies no fond desire to seek the midst, which keeps this frame entire. This known, 'tis no uneasy task to know. I'll lead thee farther on, and clearly show the pride of nature, and philosophy, her greatest works, and please thy curious eye. The walk is pleasant, 'tis an easy way, all bright and clear, for things do things betray by mutual light, and we from one thing known to hidden truths successfully go on. The end of the first book.